Good evening. My name is PJ, and I'd like to thank you for joining the Oregon Employment Department for Unemployment Insurance Temporary Rural Listening Session for Tuesday, November 9th. We will start in a few minutes. We'll be starting in 1 minute. Welcome. We will be starting this session in about a minute. This listening session is being simultaneously interpreted in Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Cantonese. If any of you would like to have this webinar simultaneously interpreted, please follow the instructions on the slide. Click the interpretation box on the bottom of the Zoom bar. Choose your preferred language. The presenter's voice will be lowered while the interpreter speaks over it. You can choose to mute the presenter if you want. These instructions also will be put in the chat box. Please note that we cannot look into or resolve any person's claim or business's issue in this public forum, and it is not safe to put your personal information, like a social security number or a business identification number, in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded webinar that will be posted online. Now, I'd like to turn over this listening session to Lindsay Leahy, the Unemployment Insurance Division Director for the Oregon Employment Department.
Thanks, PJ, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's listening session. During the next 90 minutes, we would like to gather your perspectives on the updates to the availability for work eligibility requirement for unemployment insurance benefits as we explore the possibility of making these changes permanent. The purpose of unemployment insurance benefits is to provide a temporary, partial wage replacement to individuals who are out of work through no fault of their own. These benefits help keep individuals in their local communities, create an available workforce for local businesses, and provide economic stability to local economies. We saw this in action during the pandemic, where from March 15th of 2020 through September 20th of 2021, unemployment benefits provided an infusion of over $10.9 billion into Oregon's economy. Unemployment insurance benefits are paid weekly based on the individual meeting all eligibility criteria, including being able to work, being available for work, and actively seeking work for each week that an individual claims benefits. The temporary amendment to Oregon Administrative Rule 471-030-0036 modifies the availability for work requirement so that workers who are seeking shift-based work only need to be available for at least one shift instead of a minimum of 2 shifts, which was the requirement under the old rule. For work that isn't shift-based, workers need to be available for full-time work. In most occupations, this is 40 hours per week. However, for some occupations, full-time work is fewer than 40 hours. Under the old rule, a worker needed to be available for work during all the usual days and hours of the week customary for the type of work they are seeking, which, depending on the industry, could add up to that individual needing to be available for more than 40 hours in any given week. We have notified people receiving benefits about the rule amendment, and our online temporary eligibility rule FAQ has more information. To find the FAQ, go to unemployment.oregon.gov, click on Frequently Asked Questions, and then scroll down to Temporary Availability Rule Change. If you'd like to read the rule itself, please visit oregon.gov/employ/agency and click on OED Administrative Rules. To help explain the changes, I'm going to go over 3 scenarios that show the difference that the new rule will make for people receiving unemployment insurance benefits. Please remember that unemployment insurance eligibility issues are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and these scenarios are just examples. If you have questions about your specific availability requirements or possible issues, please use our Contact Us form at unemployment.oregon.gov or call 1-877-345-3484. So scenario 1, waiting for things. Okay, the scenario is up. So in scenario 1, your occupation or the type of position you are seeking has day, evening, and night shifts, but you have limited childcare options in your area. Previously, you had to be available for 2 of those shifts to be eligible for benefits. So the limited childcare during, for example, the day and evening shifts would have caused availability issues. Now, for this scenario, you only need to be available for the night shift, so that same conflict would not be an issue for unemployment insurance benefits. Now, wait a moment for the slides to come back up. And so for scenario 2, there we are. So in this scenario, you're looking for work in an industry that is open 24 hours. Under the old rule, you had to be available for all the hours and days of the week to be eligible for benefits. Under the new rule, you only have to be available for at least 40 hours a week unless full-time for your occupation is usually defined as less than 40 hours in a week. Scenario 3, the normal hours for your customary occupation are worked from 6 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m., 7 days a week. Previously, you had to be available for all of those hours and days. However, you take the bus to work, and the bus doesn't run on Sundays in your area. In this scenario, if you didn't have another form of transportation to get to work on Sundays, you would not be eligible for benefits. Under the new rule, you only need to be available for at least 40 hours per week, unless full-time for your occupation is usually defined as less than 40 hours. So the lack of transportation on Sundays in this example is no longer an availability issue as long as you are available for full-time work. So I'll wrap up by saying, as a result of the pandemic, the labor market today looks and acts differently from what it did prior to March of last year. And the Employment Department wants to keep step with those changes by updating our eligibility requirements while continuing to remain within the federal framework for the program. And we believe this change helps us do that. I look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and I thank you for your participation today. And with that, I'll hand it back over to PJ.
Thank you, Lindsay, and I'll go get the slideshow back up. And you can let me know if you can see it. Can you see it? Is it up yet? So if you can let me know if, okay, thank you. Excuse me for this, I apologize. So we will go back to the other screen for now, and then when I can do it, Lindsay, I will bring it back up. So we'd like to remind people that we're going to move on to the details about today's session. This webinar is being recorded and we will post it to our webinar page after this listening session has ended. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and I will call on people in the order hands are raised. Since this listening session is limited to 90 minutes, you will have up to 5 minutes to comment. We reserve the right to reduce the comment time to up to 2 minutes if a large number of people would like to comment. That way we can be sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. If there is limited participation, we may end the webinar early if there are no more questions or comments. And remember, do not put personal or business information into the Q&A or chat box. And for help with the claim issue, please use our online contact us form at unemployment.oregon.gov, or you can call us at 1-877-345-3484. If you do not want to speak, but you have a question that you would like answered, please put your question in the Q&A box. Please remember that we cannot answer questions specific to your claim. Do not enter your social security number or business identification number in the Q&A or chat boxes, as this recording will be available online. If you have technical difficulties or are unable to ask your question, please send an email to oed_communications@employee.oregon.gov and we'll assist you. Our unemployment insurance listening session panelists are available to answer your questions. They are Lisa, Tim, Carol, and Zulamar. If you have a question in Spanish, please type it into the chat or raise your hand so that Zulamar may translate. If you have a question in another language, please type it into the chat and we will follow up with you after the webinar. We are now beginning the comment and question section. I will call on you in order. Please make sure you state your full name and tell us if you are making a comment or asking a question. If you are joining us by phone, be sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself when you are called on so you can comment. If technical difficulties prevent you from asking a question or making a comment, please email oed_communications@employee.oregon.gov. And as a reminder, we cannot look into or resolve any person's claim in this public forum, and it is not safe to put your personal information in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded webinar that would be posted online. I will now give people time to raise their hands. And remember, you can use our contact us online form or call us for help with your personal or business claim issues. And so if you can let me know, Lindsay, if the screen is back up, the slideshow.
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay, cool. Okay. So what's going to happen as we're waiting for comments, I'm going to be scrolling through our scenarios in different languages. And then I will call on people when they raise their hand or they put their question in the chat box. So a reminder that you may make a comment or you may ask a question. And you can do that by raising your hand, and then we will call on people in the order hands are raised. Or you may place your question or comment in the chat box, and then we will respond to that. If you would like to ask your question in Spanish, you could put that in the chat box, and then Zulumar is available to answer the question. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. So this is our time to make a public comment or ask a question. And there are different ways you can do that. First, you can raise your hand, and we will call on you in the order your hands are raised. You may ask a question to a panelist, or you may make a comment. You also may put your comment or your question in the chat box, and we will respond. And third, Zulumar is available, so a question can be asked in the chat box in Spanish, and Zulumar will be able to respond. Okay, so we do have a question, and the question is about someone's benefits, and we want to remind people that this is a public forum, and so there are ways that you can provide that you can get assistance, and I'm going to go back to the slide that has that information so you can know. You can use our Contact Us form. Go to unemployment.oregon.gov, and you see the Contact Us button, and you can put your concerns in there. We will get back with you. Or you may call 1-877-345-3484. So for help with your claim, you will see that we put the information in the chat box that you can go to unemployment.oregon.gov and use the Contact Us form, or you can call us at 1-877-345-3484. And this listening session is to receive public comment or questions about a proposed rule change. And so there are many ways you can let us know your thoughts or what your questions are. You may raise your hand and we'll call on people in the order hands were raised. You may put your question or your comment in the chat box and we will respond. A reminder is that this is a public forum, so please do not put any personal or identifying information in the chat box. If you have a question in Spanish, what you can do is you can put the question in the chat box and Zulmar is available to answer your question. We'd like to remind you that there are ways that you may comment on this proposed rule change. You can raise your hand and we will call on you in the order hands are raised. You can put your comment or your question in the chat box and we will review it, we read it and respond to it. It's important to remember that we do not want you to put any of your personal information in the chat box because this is a recorded public forum. If you would like to pose a question in Spanish, you can put it in the chat box and Zulmar will be able to respond. And you will notice that the slides we are showing are giving all the examples in different languages and it is rotating. When I say examples, what I mean is the different scenarios to help people understand what the rules will do. So we would like to invite you to provide public comment or to ask a question. How you can do that, there are different ways you can do it. First, you can raise your hand and we will call on people in the order hands are raised, and you have the opportunity to make a comment or to ask a question, and a member of our team will provide an answer to you. You also may put your comment or your question into the chat box and we will respond. Or if you'd like to ask your question in Spanish, you may put it in the chat box and Zulumar is available to respond. And a reminder that you will see on the screen, we have 3 scenarios that will help people understand how this rule change could impact them if they are receiving benefits. And so we are going through it in different languages, and I encourage you to view it so you can understand how this can have an impact on you potentially and what your thoughts are. So these listening sessions give you an opportunity to let us know if you have questions about the proposed rule change or if you have comments about it. There are many ways that you can comment. First, you can raise your hand and we will call on people in the order the hands are raised, and you can give your comment or you could ask your question. If you have a question, one of our team members will be able to provide an answer. Or if you'd like, you could put your question or your comment in our chat box, and I'll read it, and a member of our team will answer the question. Third, if you would like to ask your question in Spanish, you can put your question in the chat box, and Zulumar will be able to provide assistance, or provide an answer. And a reminder that you will see on the screen that we have the scenarios, examples for people, so they know what this rule means in more concrete terms. And a reminder that we do not want you to give personal or business information, and you can use our online contact us form for help or call us. A reminder that you may comment or ask a question during this listening session. You can do that by raising your hand, and then we call on people in the order hands are raised, and you can ask a question, and a member of our team will respond, or you can comment about this proposed rule change. You also may put your comment or your question in the chat box, and we will read it, and if it is a question, then we will respond. Third, if you'd like to ask your question or make a comment in Spanish, you may put that in the chat box, and Zulumar will respond. We'd like to let you know that there is 5 minutes remaining on this listening session. So we welcome your comments and your questions. So you can do that first by raising your hand, and we will call on people in the order hands are raised, and you can make your comment or ask your question. If you have a question, a member of our team will respond. You also may put your comment or your question in the chat box, and we will, I'll read it, and a member of our team will respond. Third, you can submit your question in Spanish, and Zulumar is available to read it and to respond. A reminder that we do not put any personal information in the chat box because this is a public recorded forum. So we have about 2 minutes left in this listening session. So a reminder, you can make a comment or you can ask a question by raising your hand, and we will call on you in the order your hands are raised. If it is a question, then a member of our team will be able to respond. You also may put your question or your comment in the chat box, and I'll read it. And if it is a question, then a member of our team can respond. And you also have the option of putting your question or comment in Spanish in the chat box, and Zulumar is available to read it and to respond. We have 1 minute left in this listening session. So if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand and we will call on you in the order you hands are raised. You may ask a question or you may give us a comment. You also may put your comment or your question in the chat box. And if you'd like to comment In Spanish, you could put it in the chat box, and Zulumar is available to answer your question or respond to a comment. Okay, so it is 6:45. So this concludes our listening session and our comment period. There is one remaining listening session available, and it is Wednesday, November 17th at 9 a.m. It is an employer-focused session. This listening session was recorded, and we will post it on the Employment Department's webinar page at unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. Thank you for taking time to provide feedback and for participating today. We appreciate it very much. Have a good night.